Okay, what does square one mean to me? Square one's not only the name of the show, but a very important concept to me. The idea of square one is this: I am going to establish a basic building block, either in my life or pertaining to a certain area of my life, to a certain project, whatever it is. It's establishing a basic building block of principles and definitions to always work from. You could say that it's a form of social contract. A social contract that can be applied within the progression of an individual or a group. And the main idea is to agree that if any negative movement ever occurs beyond that basic building block, that first square, it's meant to be acknowledged and healthily moved on from. Every individual has a different square one. Every community, every group, whether they realize it or not, whether it's explicitly stated or not. I believe it's a good practice to put effort towards defining what that is in almost every situation. What's square one of your overall productivity, of what a good day is at home or at work, and the main topic of this podcast, what is square one of what we have to pass down to the people living after us? What is square one of our education system? Of the information and wisdom we have to pass down in our families and communities? I hope to find out and contribute as much as I can to that cause. So, I hope to start building that basic building block here. The first part of that building block is this. In our families, we should remind ourselves more that children are people too, and should be treated like people from an early age instead of being infantilized for well over a decade. I don't mean this as being some sort of radical ideology. I just mean that children are people the same way adults are. We're all the same type of creature. Children possess the ability to think, problem solve, and understand complex concepts if someone is there to explain it in a way they can understand. It's just a matter of being able to find the right approach for that specific person to understand it. I believe that if we treat children like infants until nearly their teenage years, they'll stay thinking like infants until well beyond that. Simply put, we should talk to them and assume they can understand more, because they can. Assuming they can't understand things only puts them behind. I have to reiterate, I don't mean radically. I'm not saying that children should be treated like adults, just that the way we present ourselves to children shouldn't be as if they have extremely limited understanding. They have the capacity to learn even more quickly than adults sometimes, and should be treated like it. The second point I wish to add to this building block is that learning about yourself is sometimes more important than anything else. Introspection and self-evaluation is crucial to understanding your own desires and putting into perspective where you are now compared to yesterday. It's so important to think about who you become in the context of your own story, who you were in the past and who you wish to become in the future. Without that thought, you're just drifting through the time instead of stopping for a second to analyze it. Don't get me wrong, every step you take doesn't deserve to be treated with this weight, but every once in a while it does serve well to have a check-in with yourself to see how you're feeling about things. It can be difficult to find the mental space for that when life is just a little bit too chaotic and you're rushing to get things done. But just trust me, the more you're comfortable with thinking about these things, the better off you'll be in the long run. It's a skill to face life head-on instead of finding ways to run from it. And there are tons of methods that'll get shoved in your face of how to run from it. Remaining steadfast in your ability to not take up those vices and distractions is so important. Sometimes that'll mean going one way when everyone else is taking a different path, and that's okay. It's fine to be different. It's fine to stay being you regardless of what everyone else is being. Knowing who you are on a base level and being confident in that knowledge is the foundation for literally everything else in life. It doesn't serve you to be so wrapped up in what everyone else has going on that you forget to look in the mirror and be happy with that first. Another main point I wish to communicate for people young and old is that it's perfectly okay to seek help and perspectives from people that have more experience with something than you do. There's almost never any reason to keep from setting yourself up to gain knowledge that way. The more experienced people of the world are here to be respected as a resource and wealth of information that you have access to, and most often they love being able to help guide less experienced people through. It isn't corny to ask for advice. For younger people, it isn't corny to be nice to teachers or to genuinely enjoy being productive. The wiser you get, the more you realize the only truly corny thing is unnecessary and misplaced judgment. There are also many places online now that exist specifically to ask questions of people who have expertise you want access to, and there's no reason to keep yourself from using those resources for many different things. It's becoming easier and easier to access other people's wisdom, which is something I hope to eventually help accelerate through a project I call The Map. I want to, hopefully with collaboration, put together my own online resource for young people that can be used as an adulthood survival guide. The main mission of this guide being to cover the basic knowledge an adult needs to know in order to establish and maintain their life. I want to cover topics like what you can do before graduating to make the transition into adulthood seem less severe, tips for staying in a college dorm, effective learning techniques, how to look for your own place to stay, how to find and get a job with interview skills, how to budget and save money, and how to make low-risk investments. There are many things adults need to know that don't get covered in the required curriculum through high school, and that not every parent has the bandwidth in their lives to help teach. This doesn't mean the information becomes any less critical, just that some people end up having to power through life improvising their way into these things, and that's how bad decisions end up getting made. I believe that even if just a few people put genuine effort towards stockpiling advice and other resources about necessary topics, we could reach a point where most young people would be more well prepared for these things. But I digress. Another point that I would consider a part of my own personal square one is that living only for yourself is pointless. Making at least a certain part of your life about others is not only fulfilling, it promotes the idea of community and togetherness. If we all only chose to exist as individuals without having any stake in the well-being of other people, we would cease to exist. Turning a blind eye to the rest of the world and deciding to only make moves for your own gain is, in my opinion, an immoral action. I can't expect anyone else to feel the same, but that's how I personally do feel. I've only ever hoped for a prosperous future for the sole purpose of spreading that prosperity to others and to future generations. I also believe that not thinking about those future generations is a waste of time. If we aren't consistently thinking about what comes next after we're gone, how can we expect the future to be bright? We have to think about what lives we're handing the children of today. If not, how can we expect them to be more successful than us? Finally, the last point I want to talk about today is that honesty and openness about all of these topics, the ones that resonate with us at our cores, will help propel us to a better world. We all should be able to have a voice and truly communicate with the world about what makes up our character. Educators, parents, former students, all of us. We should be able to put out what we want to pass on. Each of us should be able to share what our square one is without having to worry about negative consequence and backlash. We should all be respectful and understanding about the fact that each of us has a different path. Everyone has a different lens with which to see the world. People get built different. You don't have to understand it, you've just got to respect it. No matter what stance you hold about something, someone out there will inevitably feel the opposite. These spectrums exist for a reason. Curiosity will always give better results than malice, and punishing people for being honest is just a way to make sure we keep running in circles forever without getting to the bottom of anything. My goal with this show, outside of just talking about education and preparation of adulthood, is to give people a chance to know they're in a safe place to communicate. A safe place to be honest and share what exists at the center of their priorities for the world. That platform has to exist somewhere, and we also have to talk more about how to make the world a better place to be a young adult in the future. We can't keep letting people unnecessarily pile up wasted potential simply due to circumstance. We need to have these conversations together. We need to establish somewhere that every new adult can start at, outside of the mandated school curriculum, by pooling together our knowledge and wisdom. We have to start thinking more often about what inheritance we can give the next generation so they can achieve things we could only dream of. There has to be a baseline. We have to make the weakest links stronger. We have to work more efficiently together to make the world a better place. And all of that is square one.